Time for another update on the Sling TSi build. So I was working on the windshield, the bonding of the windshield to the fuselage. So followed the same process as we did with the canopy door and windows. So basically fine line tape to get a nice edge, and then masking tape and masked up pretty much as possible on the paintwork, so that the Seeker primer is the main culprit. If that spills, then that will stain it quite badly. So to try and avoid that, masked as much as possible, and then put plenty of the Seeker, wipe off the excess, and came out quite good. Really happy with the fine line tape. Gives it a really nice edge, and I've seen in the factory builds TSIs, they've gone over the top and painted black with another band on the outside. I don't think it needs that, because it does come out quite decent if you use fine line tape. So the windshield bonded. I think I left it about 18 hours with the pressure on, using bungee cords and ratchet straps to hold it down. And then it was time to get the wings ready to be mounted. So as part of that, already fitted the wing tip lights, and also on one wing installed the landing and taxi light. The other two, landing and taxi light, unfortunately was faulty, the ones out of the box, so waiting for replacements on that. And then you also have to connect all these linkages. The aileron push rod, that's one thing it has to be in by at this point, otherwise if the wing goes on, and you won't be able to get that in later. So, and same on this end here, the fuel tank connections ready to go. And also on the flap torque tube, there is a locking collar that needs to be riveted in place before you bring the wings up for it to be mounted to the fuselage. And the inside was also time to put the panel back, and I've got my replacement battery, the backup battery, so that went in, and all the avionics has been set back, hopefully for the last time this time, and all works fine. So it's been good in that respect. And then it was time, the big day arrived when we were mounting the wings. Took a few people, a little bit of jiggling to try and get the so the essential trick was to try and get one bolt in on the main spar, and then do the rear spar bolt, because apparently that's quite hard to get in. If you do all the main spar once, the rear spar one will be difficult to get in. So we did one on the bottom, one on the top, and in between we did the rear spar bolt. And then once 2 or 3 bolts are in fact just 2 on the main spar and the rear spar is in, the rest you can tap it in. They're pretty much aligned. Again, it's quite a tricky job in terms of just wiggling the wing and trying to get the bolts in. It's definitely a multiple person job, it's not a one-man job. And once you start tightening the bolts, you'll see that the bottom skin and the fuselage side skin starts to bulge out, because now the main spar pulls together quite tightly, so there's quite a bit of bulge on the bottom skin and the side skins when the wing main spars are fully torqued up. It's quite a high torque as well, so it's quite tricky getting the torques. It takes quite a bit of time, because there are 8 bolts either side to be done. But the access is pretty reasonable. I didn't install that outboard seat rails. It's best not to have that in place to do when you do this, and none of the upholstery trim and all that. Best to have the rear seats on, so that you can at least sit for a little while doing all this. And then we've basically we didn't freeze the bolts. Some people have done that. I think that works as well. And we've just used a little bit of grease that comes in the kit. And then initially gently tap with a rubber mallet, and then you really have to bash it in once that starts going. Once the threads are visible on the other side, then you can just use a socket and try and get the nut on and try and pull it using the nut, which I think is a better way. because when you try and bash it in, you don't want to miss and kind of damage something else and accidentally land a blow on something else. One thing I was really happy with was the alignment of that flap, the flap tube, torque tube, came out really well. Some of the bolts are, especially the final torquing of especially the bottom row corner one, is quite tricky. You need a cross foot socket to try and get into that the bottom corner and nut to access it and get it to that final torque. And also the bottom row, now the factory also does all the bolts from the rear rather than what the manual shows them being done from the front. It'll really damage the front bottom skin if you try and do that. So this is apparently now the correct method, that they put them in from the back. Anyway, better check with the factory before you make any changes to what the build manual says. And then a Wingstop installation was pretty straightforward. Used fuel tank sealant for the stainless steel rivets, and then the flaps and ailerons went on. This wasn't that much of a difficult. Just make sure you use a lot of masking tape to avoid damage to any paintwork, because those the clearances are quite tight, and also you don't want washers to fall into the flaps while you're installing them. And yeah, so the right wing with the landing lights and taxi lights on it's come out quite good. So all the wing spars now bolted, final torqued up, and the creep mark labeled, so both wings are now set. And now still need to make the fuel tank connections. The electrical connection was just a twist connector. The flaps and aileron connections, obviously the torque tubes and the push rods have to be connected up. Fuel tank connections, and then you have to do the wing fairing, the fiberglass bit that goes around the joint between the wing and the fuselage. So that's kind of the next step for me. Also, when the fuel tank's empty, we'll try and get the weight and balance done as well. At this stage, we'll pretty much have most of the upholstery in, so it's quite easy to now weigh the whole thing now. So that's kind of the next on my list. So until next time, take care everyone, bye.